Ambassador Régis de Bellonnay was very supportive of this initiative and invited French architect Max Bois-Robert. Bois-Robert gave his expertise to develop remodeling methods that would not only give the necessary modern upgrades, but also preserve the natural impact of the village. Extensive preservation work was done to restore historical sites such as the Hindu Mandir and Sikh Gurdwara. Mud houses were given an uplift to improve aesthetics.
Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about this economic impact of coronavirus. Interestingly, what started off a few months ago, we were not expecting it to get to that level. Obviously, the death toll out of 100 was around 2%, which was very less as compared to SARS or other epidemic problems earlier which we have faced. But interestingly, since it started from China and then it got into places like Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. Forget about that. Currently, around over 100 countries have this virus and people who are suffering from it. Whether you talk about Italy, the death toll is around 150 and there is a lot of problem out there. Most of these festivities, they've been cancelled. Whether you talk about football matches or you talk about gatherings or anything of that sort, they've been cancelled. You talk about Iran for that matter, right in our neighborhood. Since there is an acute shortage of the medical facilities out there, and as we all know that they are under extreme sanctions, so the death toll is pretty high there as well, and around 180 plus people so far have died because of this. And on daily basis, we end up getting the information that hundreds and hundreds of more patients are coming to the hospitals. When we talk about China, we all know how it started and how it diffused in so many other places. Whether you talk about the cruise ships, hanging in the coast of Japan or otherwise, we are all witnessing some serious threats. Forget about that. Now, when we talk about the travel industry for that matter, tourism in particular, I was going through a very interesting report and that said that around 47 billion, B for billion, $47 billion a month is what the tourism industry is losing. Primarily, whether you talk about China, Malaysia, Singapore, Greece, Italy, New Zealand, Australia, Austria, you name it, and hardly people are traveling. You talk about Saudi Arabia, for the first time, at least in my life, I've seen the entire haram was empty. There was not even a single person out there because of this coronavirus. It remained closed for 3 days, and that's not a joke. That is primarily a threat which every country is trying to counter at its own level and within the given resources they have. You talk about the oil market. Look at the oil, the way it has plunged. I mean, it's almost 1/3 down from its original export price. Now hovering around $31, $32 a barrel. Now that is something very significant. You talk about other major economic indicators. Obviously, most of the supplies are from the Chinese side, whether you talk about textile or otherwise. Because the factories, they've been shut down, the production has gone pretty down. The oil consumption has gone down. That has affected the global oil market as well. So you can well imagine that this is something after 9/11 and even prior to that, when we talk about the SARS virus outbreak, this is the largest economic hit we are facing at the moment. And this is going to turn out, a lot of analysts do believe that this could be actually heading towards not only a recession, global recession, but a lot of countries could face some serious threats. Countries like Greece for that matter. Most of those countries were totally dependent on tourism industry primarily. So we'll be talking about that in detail. We have with us in our studio to talk about this issue on my right is Dr. Farida Faisal. She's a senior economist. Thank you very much, ma'am. And we have with us Muhammad Ramzan Sahab. Mia Muhammad Ramzan Sahab is a senior economist again. Thank you very much, sir. And we have with us Shahryar Aziz, who is also an economist. Thank you very much, Shahryar. So since we have 3 economists in our panel today, so we'll take the maximum advantage and we'll try to sort of convey the info to our viewers also. Ma'am, first of all, when you talk about tourism, airline industry is also suffering. And about a month ago, I was reading an article in which a German airline, Lufthansa, 1 month ago I'm talking about, I mean, lost quite a lot. And people were thinking that Lufthansa is just one airline, that's also a German airline. Why it is suffering. Now we got to know what exactly is going on, how people are reluctant to step out. They're not going to restaurants or any other place for the business activity. If you remember post 9/11, the only sentence which I used to hear very often from Mr. Bush was that keep spending money, keep going out, so that the economy should not suffer to that extent. But currently, ma'am, it seems that this is worse than 9/11. Your take?
I think the very fact that corona started from China, and China is such a dominant player in the world economic system at this point in time. Not only is it the second largest economy of the world, plus I think 90% of the world's supply chains are based in China. So I mean, it is not just that the incidence of the disease traveled from China, rather the incidence of this recession, I think, traveled from China as well. So definitely there is a scare, definitely on part of the consumers. We do see and that, and particularly in some countries, we also see that there are travel bans and travel advisories from some countries. Even in Pakistan, we see that, let's say from, people coming in from Iran or from Afghanistan, the borders have been sealed, and similarly a lot of checking going on from other countries of the world as well. So the governments are also quite vigilant, and they have had to exercise greater caution and control. But since the time that this disease has traveled to European countries and the United States, there is where we see that you see a major scare. Because in China, it's a controlled economy, and they control the public sentiment as well. The same cannot be done in open economies, and that is why you see this very dangerous situation. I think more dangerous than the disease itself right now is the impact it is having on the world economic systems. And you are right to predict that it could be the first step of the recession, which could lead to a greater fear within the markets and lead to depression. So something needs to be done, and I think that the world leaders will have to get together, and the UN will have to step in to control the situation.
I'm sure UN is very vigilant, and they are looking at this situation very minutely. Now, Ramzan Saab, today we also learned that 1,160 points were lost in one single day of trading in Pakistan. Forget about the global markets. We all know what's happening in USA, what's happening in China or in other major global trade. Primarily, sir, the major hit in one single day, that's what it has been reported. A country like Pakistan, where hardly we have almost 6 patients, 1 has been discharged, 5 are still under the supervision of the doctors. Still, this is the impact. I fail to understand what's going on in Italy. I mean, their major source of income primarily, forget about the production, is tourism. You talk about Greece, you talk about Portugal, you talk about Australia, UK. I watched this very interesting video. I wish we could show you that on TV also. That a man was making a video at the Heathrow airport. And sir, we all know what sort of traffic Heathrow always has. There was not even a single person there. Absolute silence. Nobody was there. So this is the kind of impact. Now my question is, are we overreacting, or this is actually a major threat, sir? Because a lot of people also believe that the Western media is in fact trying to capitalize on it, and there is some sort of indirect warfare on China. So
thank you, Mr. Faisal. For the last many years, in the age of information technology, the world has become global village, and now wherever in the world there is anything happens, it impacts the whole world. And same like this coronavirus, it was initially we thought that it is not that much serious, but when the whole world started responding in that way, and the economy and everything also depends upon the the traveling, the connections with other countries, because there is a lot of trade between the country to country, and especially Pakistan. Pakistan is very near to China, and we are the major importer of many raw materials of our textile and other things also, I mean, from toys to garments to everything. So, this is blessing in disguise, in my opinion. The Pakistan is suffering currently. Our CPEC is suffering. Many Chinese who were traveling to Pakistan, the economic activity, as you might have seen that we have lot of Chinese companies here who are working on CPEC, and other activities are going on here. But now at this point of time, there is no activity. Even the Chinese offices who are working in Pakistan, they are not able to even connect to their head offices. There are a lot of things are stuck up. So this is what is happening. But I believe that when there is something happens, there are opportunities as well. Because
opportunities to
opportunities
store the mask and then raise the price, and this is what we have witnessed in Pakistan.
That is one thing. That is one thing. But I have just seen that many people are making feasibility to start some production plants here. They are just seeing that this is something that it happens now. It might happen again, or there is market gap is there now. You see there at this point of time, the lot of things which would have come to Pakistan, they are not coming. So market gap is there. So people would try the local manufacturing sector who were not considered previously by the.
But this virus cannot be transferred in containers or in goods or otherwise, sir.
I am talking about the economic situation. That is
the fear is there, and it will exist for some time to come.
That will exist, but Pakistan weather is. Alhamdulillah, from the next month, most of the Pakistan will be safe due to the weather condition, because we will have temperature, more than 25 from April onward. So we believe that it will be controlled in Pakistan, and nothing will happen. We will see that inshallah no more patients will be there. But I was talking about the economic in the economic perspective, that I have seen that many people are now thinking they should. The local industry, which was closed down due to their high prices, because we are importing things from China, they are very cheap. Their raw materials are cheap for our sectors, but now they will have to purchase something from those local who were not up to that level, but they were even closed. So they will open, and economic situation it will get better.
All right. Now, Shariat, the output in China, that has gone down for sure, because when you talk about workers, no matter how many masks you wear, but still the element of fear is there in their mind, and that is something which is very important. Now, do you believe that this whole scenario could actually lead to, or maybe it could trigger some sort of recession, because people are fearing that this could be the beginning and this is going to be the worst? Some people who have written about it also said this could be the worst recession somewhat they have witnessed in 1930.
Without doubt, this will trigger a recession. Even without coronavirus, this year the emerging markets, the regional markets, the global market, it was forecasted to see a decline in its GDP growth rate. Now coronavirus has made it worse. But I second my colleague Ramzan Saab. The situation with Pakistan is that our trade balance with China is heavily tilted in China's favor. Now our imports from China that are expected to go down a bit, and that is a good sign for the government, because it was very much interested in reducing Pakistan's trade deficit. But at the same time, an opportunity is that China's textile orders, it is not able to fulfill those orders. Now 60% of Pakistan's exports are from the textile sector. Now the time is that Pakistan can market itself as an alternate to the Chinese producers, and we can sort of take those orders for textiles and improve our exports. Now,
but let me put another question here. If you remember, a few years ago, we got this GSP plus tariffs. We couldn't do much about it. If you remember, $1.5 billion at that time, right? Now we are again talking about this GSP plus status, but do we have the capacity, I mean, in terms of producing the product, the right product at the right price? And do you believe that we can sort of assemble everything and, later on come up with the final product within the given time frame? Because that is again a problem. And the quality of the product, I mean, if you look at China, look at their textile, and then you straight away think about Bangladesh. $38 billion worth of only textile exports last year with an annual growth of 16%. Where do we stand, sir? I mean, do you really believe Pakistan still has the potential? Because earlier a lot of people were also talking about changing the product line.
No, I agree with you. In the previous decade, there were numerous studies that this percentage of Pakistan's GDP is being lost each year due to electricity shortage. And then there were also numerous studies that Pakistan loses XYZ percentage of its GDP due to terrorism. Now we have defeated terrorism and now we have overcome our energy crisis, but we don't see much of a change in our exports. We don't have many products to sell. So I agree with you on that we may not be able to significantly tap onto this the opportunity because of Corona. Me and my colleagues used to lament here that Pakistan is not well regionally integrated, but the upside of the not being regionally integrated well enough is that we are insulated from global shocks such as Corona. The same happened when US saw a recession around 2007. Pakistan was not as much impacted as the other economies. Even if we consider now our neighbor Iran, our bilateral trade with Iran is around
not even
$350
a billion,
million. It is not even $500 million. And most of our imports from Iran, they are basic commodities, they are dry fruits, etc. So even if we lose on that, no problem. And same goes for our exports. They were also basic dry fruits again, quinoa,
even the bilateral
rice.
trade is less than $1 billion. That's what exactly the point is.
So our imports as well as our exports, both were insignificant. So even if we were to see a major dent in that with Iran, it wouldn't make much of a difference. So we do have to fear from the Corona epidemic, but as far as it remains outside our borders, we don't have to fear much because we are pretty much insulated because of lack of regional integration. I would like to quote the phrase by US President Roosevelt. He said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. But that is only as long as the virus remains outside our borders. Normally, I see on television that when the incoming passengers arrive on passengers, they use an infrared thermometer to measure temperature and then they let
when
you
you look
go.
at the quarantine period, 14 days or otherwise, I mean, till the time the symptoms appear, it's too late.
So
now that is the worst part. I mean, you could be carrying the virus, but you might not have the symptoms. And that's how it's diffusing in, because you know exactly if, God forbid, it penetrates in Pakistan, it is going to be a challenge and a half for us.
I totally agree with you. This is what I was saying, that if you take an aspirin half an hour before landing, the thermometer won't show any temperature and
Absolutely.
you can simply walk through. So we have very primitive disease control measures. So if it spreads, that will of course be very disastrous due to our high population concentration. Well, I'm not qualified enough to speak on the epidemic, but as far as the economic impacts are concerned, at the moment we don't have much to fear now.
So Pakistan shouldn't fear much, but there are other countries which should. We have been also joined in by Khurram Shahzad Sahab. Assalamu alaikum ji.
Walaikum assalam.
Khurram, thank you very much for taking out your time and talking to us. Now, since we were talking about the economic impact of this coronavirus, first of all, sir, it seems that Pakistan might not have that kind of a brand. I mean, things are pretty okay out here. When you look at the number of patients, how many have been recovered, how many are still in the hospitals. But when you look at countries like Italy, Iran is our neighbor, or China for that matter, how do you see this evolving now? So what sort of an economic impact it can have on Pakistan? And what should be the way forward now?
You see, there are three actually sides of it for Pakistan. Those three sides are, one is exports, the second one is remittances, and the third one is, of course, the oil price saga that has just taken place. So these three sides would, on a net basis, should actually benefit Pakistan in the long run, given the fact that oil prices has gone down about 50% from its recent peak. So that should give us enough room to, reroute our funds towards development and growth and investment that's direly required at the moment. And the second thing is export-driven growth. I think there are two legs of this factor. One is the short-term benefit, that is actually rerouting of US and European orders towards Pakistan and other underdeveloped countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam and so on and so forth. So rerouting orders from China to Pakistan is a factor that could benefit us in the short run. And in the long run, if our exporters are able to actually build the capacities, they would definitely benefit from rerouting of export orders and actually diversifying from China towards countries like Pakistan and other more cheaper, you can call it, manufacturing destinations. And the third one is remittances. Of course, that is going to hit Pakistan to certain extent. On the onset that Pakistan is going to have lower remittances because of one coronavirus outbreak that's taking place in across Middle East, and the second one is of course decline in oil prices that will have a negative impact on our remittances. But all in all, this oil price decline is going to actually offset two other factors which may impact our economy going forward.
Now, Shahzad, there's another point. Since you were talking about the exposed the oil prices, let me point a very interesting fact here that I remember it was February, March of 2007, before the recession in USA. I remember the oil prices were hovering around $147 a barrel. The dollar was stable at 61 rupees. And interestingly, now when you look at the oil prices hovering around $30 to $32 a barrel, well, the dollar is now 155, 156 rupees. The overall impact, how do you see that, sir?
You see, this is a very interesting point you made. If you go back a couple of years, 3-4 years back, there was another, oil crash that happened back in 2014, and it sustained till 2016. And Pakistan, had benefited by about $14 billion for the good 2 to 3 years. So, and at that point in time, of course, our rupee against dollar, actually dollar against rupee was around 105, and now the dollar is around 155. That's a very offsetting factor, of course. But from here onwards, if you look at the oil price and you look at our import, the constitution of our imports, 1/3 is contributed by oil and the energy bill. So if you calculate, from here onwards, how much consumption we actually, have on an annual basis, I estimate that we are going to have at least $4 to $5 billion a year of benefit if oil prices sustain around $30, $35 level. So, from here onwards, of course, the benefit is going to, come to Pakistan, and this is a golden opportunity where we can actually, correct our structural issues, our governance issues, our energy issues. The energy chain can be better managed through this sort of opportunity. But you're right. In 2007 and 2008, their parity was the currency parity was quite different than it is now.
All right. Thank you very much, Khurram, for your comments. Now, since talking about the oil prices, ma'am, Pakistan is an oil importing country, and the effect of oil, because look at the amount of electricity we are producing through thermal. Now you talk about other aspects as well, ma'am, when we talk about the energy mix, but that is going to take time. Currently, your oil import bill is going to go down, ma'am. Obviously, that is going to definitely support our, the gap primarily between your exports and your imports. There were reports that around 27% imports have fallen down, they've gone down because of the government's policies. This is also further going to add to it. So that is a good positive sign for us. But on the other part, as far as your increase in export is concerned, ma'am, only textile has suffered so far 44 million, which is a very small amount. But since we still are struggling, I would say, one is that aspect. Second, ma'am, when you look at the car manufacturers for that matter, a lot of raw material and the products are imported from China also. So that is creating a lot of problem. And currently looking at the, I won't call it a recession in Pakistan, but the kind of price hike because of the dollar, a car which was available for 2 million straight away shot up to 3 million rupees. See, so people are not buying that much. I mean, look at the decline in the sales of Toyota or Honda for that matter. In Toyota's case, it was 57%. I mean, if you were selling 100 cars a year, now you were at 43 cars a year.
Yeah.
So that's something to worry about.
Yeah.
And there were so many areas. I mean, on certain accounts, you will be having an edge, but on some other areas, you might suffer. Your take, ma'am.
My take is that, you see, as far as the international trade is concerned, certainly we were going for demand compression. We were trying to, reduce the size and also the volume of our imports. So certainly, I mean, that kind of helps out, that kind of works in our favor. It's a windfall, right? And therefore, however, you see, if our disadvantages are not that many, as Shahryar was saying, our advantages are not that many either. So, you see, as far as the international trading is concerned, yes, our oil imports will now cost less. But my question, Faisal, is that will that translate into reduction in inflation for the average individual when you have such high, petroleum levies? Or either is or the
Increased by
entire
105%
advantage
recently.
exactly, or
105%.
that entire advantage would simply be taken and put into adjusting the into the debt adjustment, because definitely the average individual, the average person who has been bearing the brunt of these mismanaged economic policies, they also need some kind of advantage out of all of this. Because if the petroleum prices are going down, at least the petroleum products should be going down. We cannot expect a reduction in price of electricity because of the problem that we have already with the IPPs, we have already fixed rates. So that rate is going to be given to the IPPs in any case. So this is not going to reduce the circular debt issue anyways. It is not going to change the structure of our economy where ease of doing business is a problem. So this can't help over there. So that is why competitiveness of our exports, that remains a big question mark. The only important thing for me right now is how much advantage would be passed on to the common person. Because yes, there is going to be an advantage, but the common person should also be, getting a benefit out of it. The levies are, some people even call them unconstitutional.
I mean, the percentage of increase is something to worry about. And unfortunately, ma'am, whenever there is a price hike in petroleum products, the impact of that 2% increase is not 2%. That's the unfortunate part. And the trickle-down effect is so much that, I mean, if somebody is selling tomatoes for, let's say, 100 rupees a kg, the straight question next day when he's going to sell it at 150 rupees a kg, straight away 50% price, he say, well, due to the fuel prices. Now the impact shouldn't be 50%.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the problem. I mean, there's no price index. I mean, there is a lot to be worried about. Now, sir, talking about the global markets, their reaction, primarily, I mean, they are observing, they are monitoring everything. Look at the S&P for that matter. Look at the Chinese, Dow in USA again, Nikkei index, you talk about, forget about the Far Eastern, I mean, obviously they all are suffering. Sri Lanka, Philippines, you talk about Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. I mean, these are the tourism places, I mean, where people go, or they have a lot of connecting flights from those areas as well. But sir, the impact is huge. Today, as earlier mentioned, 1160, one of the biggest hits in a single day, which we have recorded in Pakistan. It can impact furthermore, sir. Definitely the stock market. I do not personally believe that the stock market is the most accurate indicator of your economic growth or economic downfall for that matter. But still, this is something to worry about. I mean, even when there were coups in our countries, we have never seen a fall like this in a single day, sir.
You rightly said, I mean, there is an impact in Pakistan, like the stock market. But you see, for the last 2-3 years, what we have seen in our economy was, was it going to the right direction? It was not. In our growth rate, our development, our tax collection, our overall economic situation. So that was not in that situation that where we can say that previously we were better, and now due to coronavirus something happened and we have crashed down to everything. So we people are already used to in the low economic growth, we are already suffering. So due to this coronavirus, although it has impacted not only in the economic situation, but also it has impacted socially as well. You see the people who were going for Hajj for the last 10 days, they are not able to do. A lot of activities are stuck up due to this coronavirus. But if we see the globally, lot of countries have suffered. Where the tourism was more. The most affected thing is the tourism industry and the travel. Travel and tourism.
$47 billion
yes.
a month so far.
Because due to the hype, that is real hype basically, but due to something, the people or the countries became more conscious, like Saudi Arabia, they have become more conscious. This, in my opinion, this
Emirates Airlines, for that matter,
yes.
they have sent their staff home 10 days off.
So that is
stopped their flying to South Africa and so many other destinations.
So that is just they should fear, but it should be it is I think more reactive. The reaction should not be in that way which we have seen now.
Now I'll just give you one example. Because traveling, tourism, hoteling, everything is related.
Yes.
I'll just give you an example, like in Malaysia, in Singapore, Far Eastern countries again, the hotel occupancy used to be around 95%, 100%, in the peak tourism season. They have gone down to 15%, 12%, 88 to 85% of the rooms are empty.
Yes.
So just imagine, you can't throw off your staff or anything of that sort. Airlines, you just saw that visual. This German man was standing at the Heathrow airport and there was not even a single individual there. Can you imagine? So this is something to worry about.
This is something.
You can't force people to travel. See?
Yes, we cannot force, but now I have just got some facts about why it is happening now in that way. Previously, there were many epidemic diseases like SARS, swine, Ebola. Previously, those were there. But why this time, at the time of coronavirus, this is not as much serious, which is being reported that as
it's
the
not as
previous
serious
one.
as SARS. Still,
yes.
The impact is a lot.
The impact
is it because
lot.
of China? Is it some kind of a global war against the Chinese?
No, it is due to the information flow.
Okay.
That is due to the information flow, because the numbers which I have, this previously how many users were of the Facebook, how many users were of the WhatsApp. Now the information flows in so rapid way and to the masses that everyone becomes conscious. Previously the information flow was not there in like now, and everything has the people become more conscious. The people are not ready to travel, or the governments even, because the government has to decide according to the situation, whatever their people think. So whatever Saudi Arabia has done, whatever other countries have done, even our tourists who were stuck up in Iran, they are still there. That is also reaction which is due to this information flow. So if the information flow would have not been in that way, so it might have not affected in the way which we are facing now.
Now, it is also generally believed, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory, but generally people are saying that, well, see, those two countries, they were giving the example of Iran and China. Since they were against they were against the United States of America, and now this is some kind of a biological warfare. A lot of people are also blaming the Chinese government that maybe in Wuhan there were two industrial units which were producing something of that sort. So, there are so many interesting aspects to look at it. And especially when you look at America now, a lot of people believe that because of this technology, you talk about HARP, you talk about anything, they can change the weather patterns, they can do whatever they want to do. I mean, they have total control over the technology side. But sir, looking at the Chinese, the way they have fought against this, but still having said that, the way the media has reported, because this story is the headline nowadays. You pick up any newspaper, any magazine,
Yes.
you switch on the television channel and watch any Western channel, they'll be talking about this. The interesting part is that, sir, as rightly mentioned, that the flow of information is so much that it has actually gotten into your mind and is really affecting your decision-making process now.
Yeah.
The aspect that I find interesting is that next door in India, Prime Minister Modi has to rely on the diversionary theory of war to solve his internal issues. So sometimes he has to stir up internal security situation, and sometimes he shows aggression towards Pakistan. But our Prime Minister Imran Khan is lucky that somehow after every few months something or the other comes up, and then all the attention, first it was the strikes in Kashmir, and now we are seeing this. So as this, first of all, this is a very massive price fall. It is almost unprecedented. On Friday, it closed at $43 to the barrel, and then today it went down to as low as $27 a barrel. So if the government, first of all, the government will not 100% pass on the benefit to the consumers, it is my opinion. It would also try to cash in on it. It would most probably not raise the GST because, first of all, by definition, it is the general sales tax, so it is uniformly applicable. And the second reason is that the GST
Is that still 6% on petroleum products?
Sales tax, no.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Okay,
very-
okay.
And the second reason is that the GST, it is shared between the federal government as well as the provinces, and the major part goes to the provinces.
Yes.
So that is the reason that we see that the federal government mostly relies on increasing the petroleum levy, which 100% stays with the federal government. So it will keep some of the benefits to itself, and it would pass on the rest, the consumer surplus, to the consumers. And even if it shares it 50-50, still the consumers can benefit by a price decrease of say 15 rupees to the litre, and the government can also increase its revenue from a litre by 15 rupees. The thing is that if the price decreases by 30%, the situation in our economy is such that demand would not increase by 30%. It would be far less than that. So overall, the import bill would go down, and which is good because being since
They
crude
were
oil
estimating it around $4 billion. That's still a lot of money for us. I mean, looking at the current economic conditions, I mean, I think $4 billion is a lot of money.
So the government would increase its revenue, and at the same time it would be reducing its total import bill in the form of crude oil imports due to this price decrease. First of all, we would be able to see the reduction in transport fares, the cost of manufacturing due to petrol. But a secondary benefit is that it is also a component in our electricity pricing. Yes, our tariffs are mainly set upfront, but there is a component known as fuel price adjustment. When that kicks in, the price of electricity will definitely go down, and it would further reduce our cost of production. And it should provide some respite to the 18 months long inflationary surge that Pakistan had been facing previously. So one might expect that the State Bank would loosen its monetary policy, its discount rate in its upcoming sessions. But since we don't have much to sell, so I can't say that this reduction in fuel price how it would translate into our exports. Nothing on that because of the international decrease in coronavirus, etc.
All right. Ma'am, IMF, simple formula. I mean, they would squeeze you where they know you can get the money. So obviously, when you talk about the petroleum price, obviously that is the cash cow for the government.
Yeah.
So we won't we shouldn't expect that they will give you some sort of a benefit of 25 rupees a litre or something. Plus, your electricity bills or other tariffs for that matter, obviously they are under the direct check of the IMF. That's because they know where you can get the money from. So no benefit for the assumption again, no benefit for the general public. Things would remain the same. Maybe you might see decrease in your inflation by a few percentage points.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
it.
What else do you see, ma'am?
Well, I think that now, the some of the advantage will be passed on to the consumer, and we will see a decrease in oil prices, but again, not to the extent that is well deserved by the average customer, because of that levy. And yes, the adjustment will go into debt servicing, because that is the that is the component of the budget which is eating up half of our budget. So certainly yes, but with the IMF, if you see, even before this sudden price decrease in oil prices happened, last time the negotiations with the IMF team, the government had taken a stance and had said that no more increase in the utility prices, because it is affecting our growth rate to that extent. You stopped short of calling the fact that there is a recession in Pakistan. You should say that there is a recession. Of course there is, because the growth rate that we are looking at is 2 to 3%, and that is I think looking at it positively. So I mean, that is not the kind of growth rate which can be considered anything other than recessionary, because in Pakistan the growth rate should be around at least 5 to 6%, so as to ensure that our youth finds employment, etc. So we really need to understand that putting in this money, giving controlling inflation and putting in money for the purpose of growth, bringing down the policy rate, it is going to be much more critical than just paying off debts. And I think it has been made very clear with the IMF. It is for the first time that the government has negotiated hard. It has already, Prime Minister Imran Khan has very clearly talked to the textile manufacturers and given them a reassurance that the price of electricity given to them would be at the same level as was promised to them. So I think it gives us a very great opportunity at this point in time to kickstart our economy, because that is what is required at this point in time.
All right. Now, talking about the international trading in stocks, very interesting. I mean, when you look at the closing on Friday and when you look at the closing on Monday, Frankfurt's DAX 30 6.8% went down. Paris CAC 40 dived 6.9% in one day. You're talking about Milan's FTSE MIB index 9.9%. You talk about Tokyo 5%. You talk about Hong Kong 4.2%. Sydney shed 7.3%. I mean, this is just one day. I think the impact is going to be there. This week is going to be pretty heavy for the investors in the stock market, because there is no buyer, unfortunately. And secondly, sir, when you look at Aramco's share, which was calculated around 2 trillion, correct sir, if I'm not wrong, 2.1, and now they have shed 10%. That money is around $200 billion plus. One day, one company. So the impact is there.
Sir, I would say that the investor and the money is so scared that with the small piece of information, it impacts the investor.
Rumors,
yes. even rumors. And this is, the corona is something which is really been seen. I mean, in China and other countries, you see. So whatever happens, especially the information, the money and the investor is very fearful for any situation, any negative situation, whatever arises around the globe or in the local market. So investor and money will not act in that point of time. So when they will face, they will see some sort of recovery, then it goes and it impacts positively. So this is something which has happened, and which is real expectation in this situation. Then I mean, there is hue and cry around the globe that coronavirus and flow of information, as already I said, that everyone is scared, because they know that now the information flow is so much that even a small child knows that what coronavirus is. So it is real happening, and it would happen. You cannot stop.
Last 1 minute, a quick comment, Shahryar. Now, what I have witnessed, what I have noticed, and this is my take. I mean, you can always disagree. if you look at American stocks, whether you talk about, I mean, I have the whole detail. I mean, this S&P 7.3% went down. New York Dow 1%, and that's a lot. You talk about dollar yen again. There was this, it got weakened. My one last point, and that is about till the time there were no fear of coronavirus inside USA, things were pretty okay. At the moment they have seen the impact. Now they were also saying that we do not have the capacity to sort of manufacture these many masks in USA. Obviously everybody else is dependent on China. They have their own shortage there as well. My point is, sir, that now there are a lot of cases, reported cases, a lot of people have died. You talk about New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, the West Coast. People are actually fearing it now, meaning that in the coming days, the impact could be more and could be very significant. Closing remarks from you, sir.
Well, going forward, the implications I would say is that Pakistan should not let this fall in massive fall in crude prices delay its focus on the north-south gas pipeline that Russia was investing in from our port all the way to Lahore. We should continue with that because natural gas would still be cheaper, and same goes for LNG. We should not shift our focus away from that because they will still be cheaper alternatives. So there is one factor that the government might shift away its focus because it is now seeing cheaper oil imports. And another thing is that we have received a favorable IMF review this time, even though we were not meeting all of our requirements, especially as far as the FBR's collections were concerned. Also, we received good tidings from FATF. We achieved a lot, but we fell far short of the 40 demands that they had met, yet we were not put into the blacklist. The reason primarily was because of the political economy. Pakistan was helping in the Afghan-Taliban negotiations because of that. But now as those talks are failing, we should expect that our next IMF review, it would not go as smoothly as the last one went. And as far as the FATF is concerned, there also we might face some arm twisting. So keep your fingers crossed, hope for the best, but also we would not be able to
you need
do
to be
as
vigilant.
much.
You need to know what's going on.
We need to be
you,
vigilant because the Afghan peace-Taliban deal, which was, it wasn't supposed to last long from day one. It was my opinion because
the spoilers were always there.
yes. So now as it is falling apart, we would once again be arm twisted from IMF, from FATF to play our role again.
Interesting times ahead.
Together.
Anyway, Sharia, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you. Thank you very much, Dr. Farida. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8. Till then, take good care. Khuda Hafiz.